Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
For 60 years, people have thought one thing. Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated President John F. Kennedy. But did he? We're joined on the star line by a legendary filmmaker and an award-winning journalist who have come together piecing the ultimate whodunit. We welcome Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien, host of the podcast Who Killed JFK.
Nice to see you,
Sean. How are you?
Absolutely great, friends. Let's go beyond the mic. Rob, you're a storyteller. Why was this story so irresistible for you?
Well, like I say in the first episode, I was 16 years old when this happened, and anybody who was alive and conscious at the time knows exactly where they were when it happened. And it was a national trauma. It traumatized us all. And I was in class in school. A kid comes in, whispers in the teacher's ear, and he turns to us and says, I have some terrible news. And it was the most terrible news. We were all sent home from school. We all watched nonstop on television. So you have an entire country glued to the television set and having this collective trauma. And it doesn't leave you. It never leaves you.
Soledad, I talked with the former Secret Service agents Paul Landis and Clint Hill on that day. Paul was never interviewed by the Warren Commission. That's an immutable fact that confounds me. As a journalist, you examine facts. Which one fact hasn't added up for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of that. I mean, because, of course, not the only person, right? The number of people who were never interviewed, the number of contradictory statements, the guy who performs the autopsy who burns the original autopsy, but then rewrites it. So don't worry. It's exactly, I mean, it makes no sense. And again, I'm not a person who's particularly suspicious, but then you start having evidence after evidence after evidence of things just seeming so unusual. And so I think for me, that was interesting because as you started this interview, we all know what happened. That was my high school experience. Here's what happened. This is it. I never doubted it. I honestly never really thought about it for many, many years. And it wasn't until you begin to connect the dots. And I think Rob's obsession and interest in this story sort of brought me into the interest, and seeing all these contradictions then meant we had to explain it to our audience, both an audience that, like me, had no real back knowledge of it, and an audience that had been fascinated by the story for the last 60 years.
Rob, if Hollywood had written this script for a movie, would it be made or would it be just too unbelievable?
Well, I mean, Oliver Stone did make this, JFK. I mean, he didn't spell out exactly what happened. He just generally put out the idea that the Warren Commission was wrong and that there was a conspiracy involved. What we try to do in our podcast of 10 episodes and 2 bonus episodes is take all the information that has been revealed over 60 years and put it together in a narrative that people can understand, because little bits and pieces of information have dropped within the last 60 years apart. And if you're not paying attention, you don't know how that piece fits into the puzzle exactly. And what we're trying to do is put that whole puzzle together to make a picture for people to understand.
Soledad, you've won awards for your coverage for the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and the BP Gulf Coast oil spill. Would you give them back if you could find out who killed JFK, really?
Listen, I've always loved, it's always great to get an award, but at the end of the day, those awards come a year after you've done something. And as cheesy as this is going to sound, it's always the work, right? I mean, it really is I've done great things that got no awards. I've done things that are like, that have gotten great awards. So it's really about the work and the projects. And this project is fascinating. Yeah, I think if, someone said, okay, here is uncontrovertible evidence that this is what happened, which I think we get pretty close to in this podcast. You'll have to wait to the last episode, but we really get to it. Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Rob, while we have you here, I'm going to ask you and Soledad one question because I never know if I can ever get you back here again. What's your favorite Albert Brooks movie of all time? Mine,
I would say Defending Your Life. Because to me, it's the most complete in terms of, it's very funny, but it's also very emotional. It's a love story. He and Meryl Streep are tremendous in it. I would say that one.
Soledad, do you think the NIL has the potential of killing women's sports in Title IX?
No, I don't, actually. I don't.
Why?
Because I guess I'm a nauseating optimist, and I think there's going to be a good opportunity here. And I think, we got to figure out a way to compensate some of these young athletes who really, put a lot in and sometimes come away with nothing. Is it perfect? I don't know yet, but I wouldn't say that this early. No.
It's time for One Big Question with Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien from the podcast Who Killed JFK? Friends, has the truth been lost to time? And in this era of doubting the media, would people even believe if the truth of who killed JFK was really discovered?
Well, that's a great question, because I think you've hit the nail on the head. We are in a world of disinformation now. And with AI and social media, there's all kinds of ways to distort the truth. And that makes it even more important that people like Soledad and the media and journalists that work hard to make sure people do get the truth, because it's very, very hard to get to it now.
$64,000 question. Rob's exactly right, and your question's exactly right as well. I certainly hope so, but it is a crazy time. We all know that.
Piecing together the ultimate whodunit and who killed JFK, and I'm glad they aren't AI.
How do you know? How do you know?
That's why I asked the off-the-wall questions.
Oh, I'll tell you, AI is smart enough to figure out the answers to those.
Soledad O'Brien, Rob Reiner, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Take care.
Thanks, Sean.
And that, my friends, is a Beyond the Mic shortcut. If you're enjoying these conversations, please check out another Beyond the Mic episode to find more actors, artists, and people you need to know. We'd also appreciate a like and subscribe on the Good Pods app.